Graphing system of inequalities. Okay, so before I start with examples of graphing system of inequalities, I want to refresh your memory or remind you that anytime you see an inequality symbol when you're graphing, that means you're going to have to shade, because some of you forget the whole purpose of having an inequality is because you have to shade somewhere. Not only that, but you have two types of lines. You have a solid and you have a dashed line. Okay, so let's say, for example, your inequality, let's say you had this. Okay, so we're using the less than inequality. This means that, first of all, you're going to have a dashed line. So it could be a positive dashed line or a negative. Okay, so for this example, it would be a negative because we have a negative slope. And you're going to have to shade under the line. So anything below the line gets shaded. That's below. That's below. Under the line. Okay. Or what if you have an inequality with this symbol? So let's say we had something like this. Okay. Well, that means that you're going to have a solid line. So here's my solid line, positive. Maybe you have a negative line. This means you're going to shade over the line. So on top of the line is the shaded area. On top of the line. Okay. This is what you'll be doing. You're going to be graphing inequalities and you're going to be shading somewhere. So, moving on to the examples. Solve the system of inequalities by graphing. So here we have two inequalities, and then I have three graphs. I know you're wondering, why does she have three graphs? Okay, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to graph these two inequalities in two separate graphs. And then I'm going to graph both of them on the same graph, and that's what you're going to be doing today. You're going to be graphing two inequalities on the same graph, but before we do that, I want to practice how to graph separately first, so you understand what's going to happen when I graph them both on the same graph coordinate plane. Okay, so graphing this first one, remember, this means we start at the 2 on the y-axis, so put a dot on the 2. Then you're going to use the slope. The slope is a number in front of x, remember. When there's no number, that means there's an imaginary 1. So my slope here is a 1, but I need it as a fraction so I can rise and so I can run. So whenever the number is not a fraction, put it over 1. Make it into a fraction. So this means I'm going to go up 1 and go to the right 1. So up 1, run 1. All the way through. Do the opposite. Go down 1 and to the left 1. Okay, so look at the inequality. This means that not only do we have a dashed line, so let me draw my dashed line, we are going to shade above the line. So on top of the line is where I'm going to shade. Okay. All right. On this other graph over here, I'm going to graph this inequality. This one here. Okay. So this means start at the -1 on the y-axis, put a dot at the -1, and then you're going to use the slope, which my slope here is -2. So just put it over 1, and that's your slope. This means I'm going to go down 2 units and 1 to the right. Down 2, 1 to the right. Or you go up 2 units and 1 to the left. up 2, 1 to the left. Okay. This inequality, for this particular one, says that you should have a solid line. So here's my solid line. And you're going to shade under the line because that is the less than symbol. So you're going to shade below the line. Okay. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to graph these two same inequalities here. Like I said, that's today's lesson. So what you should do is use two different colors. So this first inequality is going to be this one, A. The second inequality is going to be this color, B. So once again, I'm going to graph the same inequality here. So the first one, remember, starts at 2, so put a dot on the 2. The slope is 1 over 1, so go up 1 and run 1. We have a dashed line. Label it. This is A. Okay, and of course, I'm going to shade above the line, so very lightly shade above the line. Okay. On the same Cartesian plane, I'm going to graph equation B. Equation B said to start at the -1 on the y-axis. You're going to use the slope of -2, so put it over 1. And this means go up 2 and 1 to the left, or down 2, 1 to the right. So I'm going to keep doing this. Okay. And remember, this was a solid line. Oh, a little too crooked. Okay. And label it. This here is line B. This one said to shade under the line. So this here is under the line. Again, very lightly, you're going to shade that area. Okay. So, system of inequalities. The solution to a system of inequalities is the area, or it's any point as long as it's on the area where the two inequalities shade together. Now, if you notice, in this area, this is where both lines are being shaded. That's what the area that they're sharing together. So I'm going to color that a little extra bold. Just a little extra. This is the solution to the system of this inequality. All this area. So our answer here is going to be any point as long as it's on that area. So I could use, let's see, -4, 5. Maybe I want to use -5, -1 down here. Maybe I want to use -6, 0 right there. Any point as long as it's on the area that both of these lines are sharing for the shaded part. Okay. This also happens to be the area for quadrant 2 and the area for quadrant 3. Okay. Quadrants. You might be wondering, well, Miss, I forgot what a quadrant is. Okay. So, moving on to the next example. Quadrants. Quadrants is the names of the sections that make up the graph. So we have a graph cut into 4 parts. This first part is your quadrant 1, so I'm going to put a Q1. This second part, we're going counterclockwise. This is quadrant 2, so Q2. This third part down here, That is your quadrant 3. And then this last part, this is your quadrant 4. Okay. All right. So on this next one, we're going to graph both inequalities on the same graph. So again, two colors. This is A and this is B. The first inequality, if you notice, we need to change that because we cannot graph 2x plus y. Not the way it looks. So I'm going to rewrite it over here. Okay. In order for us to graph, well, it has to be in slope-intercept form. So we're going to move the 2x to the other side. And now we have that y is greater than 1 minus 2x, or y is greater than, the slope comes first, and then the 1, and it is a positive 1. Either way is correct. Okay, so graphing this one, we're going to start at the 1 for the y-axis. And the slope says you're going to go up 2 units or down, whichever one, but you're going to run 1 unit only. Okay, so I'm going to go down 2 units, go to the right, 1, or go up 2 units and go to the left 1. So up 2, run 1, down 2, run 1, down 2, run 1. Okay. This here has a greater than inequality, which means you're going to need a dash line, and label it. This is A. Always label them. This inequality is also saying that we're going to shade the top area greater. So above the line, very lightly, go ahead and shade. Okay, very lightly. And then we're going to graph the second inequality. Okay. So that one says to start at the 3 on the y-axis, and then we're going to use the slope of 1, so this is 1 over 1. So go up 1 and run 1 to the right. It is a positive slope, so you should end up with the positive line. Okay. This inequality says that you should have a solid line. Okay. Label it. This is B. And you're going to shade under the line, so anything below. Very lightly shade that area. Now there's this section where these two inequalities share the same shaded area. That is the solution to this system of inequalities. So this area here is the solution. So that one is going to be a little extra shaded. And now just give me a solution or solutions. Any point is a solution as long as it's on that area where they both share. Okay. Now if you notice, that area is on quadrant 1, so you could pick a point that's on there. But it's also on quadrant 4, so you could pick a point that's on that area as well. So I'm going to pick a point that's on quadrant 1. So let's say 4, -2, right here. So for quadrant 1, 4, 2. And I'm going to pick another point that's on quadrant 4, 5, -1. Okay, that is a system, that is a solution to this system of inequalities. All right, let's go ahead and do another example. I'm going to label the quadrants first. Then I'm going to label the inequalities. This is A and this is B. I'm going to graph the first inequality, which says start at the -1 on the y-axis, then use the slope. In this case, I have a -1 of a slope and put it over 1. So this means you're going to go down 1, move to the right, or up, move to the left. Okay, keep going with the same pattern, and you should end up with the negative line because you have a negative slope. Okay, now this inequality has a less than symbol, so that means that you're going to shade, well, first of all, you have a solid line, you have a dashed line. Make sure you label it, this is A. And you're going to shade under because it's the less than symbol, so you shade below the line. Very lightly. All right. Next, I'm going to graph the second inequality. Now, this second one is not written in slope-intercept form, so I need to change it up a bit. So let me rewrite it. What I need to do is I need to move the x away from y by subtracting it. So now I have that y is greater than 4 minus, I'm going to put a 1 in front of the x. Or, if you want to write it differently, this is the same as y greater, the slope comes first, and then the intercept, which is 4, and it is positive. Okay, so that means we're going to start at the 4, positive 4 on the y-axis, and then we're going to use the slope of -1. So put it as a fraction. This means go down 1 and run to the right 1, or go up 1 and move to the left 1. And keep going with the same pattern. Okay. So this inequality says first of all, you should have a dashed line. So here is a dashed line. And I'm going to label it B. And then it says to shade the top area, so above the line. Okay. So if you notice, these two inequalities are not going to shade, they're not going to share an area where they're both being shaded because they're shading on opposite sides. Inequality A is shading under the line, inequality B is shading above the line. So this means that this system of inequality actually has no solution because there's not an area that they share. First of all, they're parallel lines, so they're not sharing an area where they both shade. So no solution. So you cannot give me a point for a solution because they don't share a specific area. They're never going to share the area. So no solution. Okay.